Hey everyone, welcome back to Cincinnati Zoo Tales. I'm Jenna.
And I'm Mark. Thanks to everyone for tuning in to yet another episode of Cincinnati Zoo Tales. I'm excited to continue our not so spooky season where we're kind of debunking these animals that people think are really spooky and scary, and we're trying to tell people why they're not spooky and educate you on why. A lot of these animals are actually really friendly and you should want them around. So I'm excited for today's episode. We're being joined by Sammy Villa. Sammy is the head keeper of the animal ambassador team here, and she's here to talk to us about an amazing native animal that we have right here in North America. But thanks for joining us, Sammy. We appreciate you taking the time out of your day.
Hello, I'm so happy to be here. Hello, everyone.
Yes, thank you for being here. And that's a good point. Like, we don't have a ton of native species that we've talked about on the episodes before. So I'm excited. It's one of my favorite animals, and I think an animal that a lot of people that come to the zoo now recently have fallen in love with. She's very popular.
Yeah, she's a superstar now.
Definitely, yeah. Especially on social media, I feel like. Yeah.
Yes, she is. We didn't have a lot of really native species in the zoo, and in our department, we really didn't have a lot either. So over the course of the last 2 years, we've added an opossum. We've had skunks, but added an opossum, some ground squirrels, and even a red fox.
Yes. So exciting. So today we are going to be talking about opossums. Opal is the one that Sammy and her team are lucky enough to take care of, and she goes out for meet and greets. So some of you people that are listening that have been to the zoo recently may have met her. Is she out on a daily basis? Or?
Yeah, she gets handled a lot. Now, she does live behind the scenes, so it's not one that you can just see while you're visiting. But if we decide to take her out, or there's an event going on, or if you're in summer camp or something, you would be able to get to see her there.
She's super cute. Mark and I have had the pleasure of meeting her, and she is awesome. But first, I think we want to talk a little bit about opossum natural history. If you can just tell us a little bit about them. And I know there's one thing in my mind that I'm thinking of that makes them super cool. And just a little bit about how long they live and where they live and how much they weigh and that sort of thing.
Yeah, there's so much with that. So they are really interesting animals with a ton of adaptations. So firstly, they are native, so you can find them right in your own backyard, which is pretty amazing. Those adaptations that they have are super important for them to survive in our area too, because it's actually really hard for them to live in the range that we're in. Because they're technically a tropical species that have just their population has grown and grown and grown. And now we see them all over the place, so that used to not fully be the case. So adaptations-wise, they have opposable thumbs, which is pretty amazing for any animal that's not a primate.
Yeah.
Helps with that climbing. They also have prehensile tails, so they can use them like an extra arm. Helps again with that climbing and an extra form of support. They have 50 teeth in their mouth too. Wow. So that's the most out of any mammal that lives in North America, which can be pretty scary when you see that mouth open. But they usually do just fake it. They're going to be posturing. They're going to pretend they're really, really scary. And usually they actually run away. They're not trying to have any kind of a fight. But if that doesn't work out for them, they're going to open that mouth, show all 50 of those teeth, and hopefully scare, whatever predator was going after them. Something kind of silly about them too is that their prehensile tail, it's completely naked. Their ears are completely naked. Their toes are completely naked. So they're really, again, not made for this kind of a habitat and the weather that we have. So when you see them outside in the wild, like in your backyard or something, they might not look the prettiest. They might not be an opal. They're gonna look a little rough. Because if they've made it through a winter, it's not easy on them. So they might have frostbite, or maybe are losing, an appendage or a part of their body because of that. So they don't always look as cute as Opal does. I
definitely did not know they originated more further south, and that makes sense now. Having those naked parts is not great for me.
I always thought the tail was kind of cute though. It's almost like a naked mole rat type of thing where it's so ugly it's cute to me. I think it's precious.
I think one of the coolest things about them too is being our only marsupial.
That's what I was thinking. I was wondering if you're gonna bring that up, and then you brought up 5 other really cool adaptations. And I'm oh wow, yeah, the prehensile tail is super cool.
Yeah, so a kangaroo, a wallaby, a koala, they are marsupials. They have a pouch that they carry their babies in.
What are they using those 50 teeth to eat?
Anything and everything. They are total generalists, and that goes from where they live and the habitats that they take up to what they eat. So they will literally anything they can find. They're scavengers. They are also omnivores. They will go through your trash, of course, to get things, but they actually eat a lot of carrion or mice that are out there. Insects and ticks are a big one. So opossums are huge in tick control, which a lot of people don't always think of when they see that opossum scurrying through their backyard. All of the ticks that it's collecting on its belly as it walks, 'cause their bodies are so low to the ground, their bellies rub on the grass, and anything that's on there is going to go into their fur, and they are fastidious groomers, so they're going to groom and groom and groom and eat almost all of the ticks that climb on them. So they're a huge form of tick control. If you have one in your backyard, you don't have to worry as much about your dog or your cat getting ticks, you getting ticks, your kids getting ticks, or Lyme disease. They're huge in tick control, which is really, really important, obviously.
Yeah.
That is so important and so silly and interesting how things get, like, come to be believed throughout, like human populations. I think a lot of people assume opossums are dirty. Same with, like, vultures because of maybe what they are eating, but they're not thinking it through. They're actually, you just mentioned, they are grooming and they're going to keep themselves really clean that way, but they're also helping clean up carrion and other animals that might be, like, transferring diseases. So
definitely, yeah. And the stuff you just don't want to see in your backyard.
Right.
They'll take care of it before you ever have to see it.
Yeah. I just realized that for the first time ever. I don't know if you realized this. You probably did. I didn't ask you about you. We start every
We would circle back.
Opal is the star.
I don't want to throw you off because you're doing a great job telling us about opossums, but you're uniquely qualified to talk to us about opossums because of your background. So going back to where I would normally start is tell us a little bit about yourself and how you became a zookeeper, and did you always dream of being a keeper?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, I grew up always loving animals and doing kind of like the home rehab thing when you find a bunny in your backyard or something. And I went to school for it. So I actually grew up in Connecticut, and we didn't have many opportunities for what I specifically wanted to go to school for. It's a lot of livestock up there. So it's actually how I made it out to Ohio. Was I went to Kent State and got a major in zoology. And then I did an internship at Back to the Wild. It's a wildlife rehab center up in Sandusky, Ohio. So if you know, like, where Cleveland is, that's Cleveland and Toledo. We're, like, sandwiched in the middle, so we're right on the lake. Beautiful, beautiful spot.
That's where, like, Sawyer...
Cedar Point.
Cedar Point. It's not Sawyer Point.
Yes, yeah. Lived about 2 minutes down the street from Cedar Point. Nice. Dealt with all the traffic. But got to do the cool roller coasters. But yeah, right on the lake, too, which was amazing. But I got my internship out there, and then I was hired at the end of my internship. So I got really, really lucky that there was a position open, and I was hired in. And so I started as just a clinic worker, and then I got promoted to a supervisor, and then I was the manager of our wildlife rehab program. Wow. So I was doing that for about 10 years. And rehab's just, it's very hard. It's very taxing. I would be doing rescues at 9, 10 o'clock at night. Phone rings off the hook all the time. You're doing a million things all the time. And for me, it just wasn't sustainable anymore. Yeah. So I started looking at other opportunities. There was a position open at the Cincinnati Zoo. I said, I don't know if I'm qualified for the Cincinnati Zoo, but I'm going to try. And I was hired in. So I've been here for 2 years now, a little over 2 years now, in the Animal Ambassador Department.
I mean, you were not only were you qualified, but you're already a head keeper, so that's pretty amazing. What were some of the animals that, like, you mostly worked with, or your favorites as, like, a native wildlife rehab, where you're going to see, the animals that are native to that area? What were you mostly seeing or working with?
So being by the lake, a lot of waterfowl and eagles. Okay. So, and that was one of the coolest things, was all the eagle rescues that we did. Have some pretty fun experiences of getting to do that. But a lot of different types of waterfowl, great blue herons, egrets, tons of ducks. I mean, we're a huge migratory bird stop. So many different cool ducks, especially at this time of year and going into the winter. But we took in literally everything. So anything from little songbirds to squirrels, chipmunks, opossums. I've raised probably thousands of opossums. Owls, hawks, snakes, turtles, so many turtles. I think we had like 45 turtles when I left. Wow. Foxes, bobcats. We really did everything. So if someone had a call about something, And it actually needed help. Yeah. Sometimes the animals don't always need our help, and when they actually did, we were the place that they came. And we also did tours, and we were open to the public in that way, so people were able to come by and see all of our non-releasable animals. This rehab, unfortunately, doesn't always have happy endings, so some of the animals don't make it through, the process, but the animals that do and cannot be released for whatever reason, if we had a home for them, they stayed with us. So that was really cool, too, seeing an animal that you get in rehab, whether it's a baby or an adult that comes in and injured, and you kind of figure out what you can do for it. Is it able to be released? It's obviously the ultimate goal, or do we have a spot for us that we can keep it? And then its job is to be an ambassador and educate thousands and thousands of people.
And that's relatable to what you're doing now with all different types of animals. But I think rehab is just, I did an internship, and I've said on this podcast several times, like, that would be the dream, right? In so many ways, when you think about it, you get to rescue animals, and in the good ways, you get to release the ones that are able to make it. But then you think about how, like you mentioned, the hours are going to be hard, and the ones that you can't release. And I'm sure it's like a ton of compassion fatigue in that.
That's a huge thing. The animal field in general, but with rehab, you're kind of helpless in certain situations.
Really high highs and really low lows, I'm
definitely. Sure. Yeah, it's rough. For sure.
Raising little babies and then letting them back into the wild. That's a dream, right?
That's the great part.
What it is.
You don't get to see the bad side of it, obviously. And it's such an admirable job. Like, I really respect you for taking that on, because it's really hard work, like Jenna mentioned, too. It's really long hours. I'm curious, though, for, like, a lot of wildlife rehab places, do you know, like, a percentage of animals, roughly, that are able to be released? Because I'm always curious. Obviously, you're going to get animals that are injured beyond being able to be released, unfortunately, but I didn't know what the numbers actually looked like.
Yeah, it's not great.
Really?
A lot of times when animals are coming to us, we're their, last option, and sometimes the option is to help them leave the world more peacefully. So euthanasia is a tool that's used in wildlife rehab for that, and not all animals can, live and be okay with living under human care. So we have way better success rates with babies, that come in, and we're just literally helping them to grow so that they can be released. So this isn't like a number across the board for everything, but kind of more of an average is like maybe 60% on the high end.
Wow.
Yeah. So,
and a lot of times when you're getting called in, it's pretty desperate, right? This animal's really not doing well. Something's really wrong with it.
Yeah, they are. Yeah. Not always, where we can help them in the way where we want to, but at least we know that if they bring them to us, they're not going to suffer, unnecessarily out there. That was our biggest thing when we answered the phone, was saying we are a last resort. So if you find a, nest of baby bunnies in your yard or something, and you just don't want them there, or you're worried your dog is going to get them, or, your kids have found it, and people just want to bring them in because of convenience. And, we are not a mama rabbit. We can do as much as we can, but I'm not a mama rabbit. They're not going to have a good shot with us. Yeah. So a big part of what we did was actually trying to keep the animals from coming to us when it wasn't necessary. But the phone rings off the hook, especially during storms and, wintertime and bad weather. Sure. Definitely.
Man. Yeah. Well, thank you for all you did with that, and I'm so happy to hear you got to work with thousands of opossums, because that's why you know so much about them.
Yes. It made you uniquely qualified for your spot now, that's for sure. Yeah.
Yes, they were one of my favorites too, so favorite to rehab.
So we talked about opossums in general, and if you have more facts that I interrupted that you were going to share with us, please share, but also tell us about Opal and how she came to the zoo, and a little bit about her personality, because she is the one who people may get to meet if they are here.
Yes, Miss Opadope is my nickname for her.
Opadope.
So she is actually from where I used to work. I still have a very close relationship with them, and I've reached out knowing that they were going to be getting in, litters and litters of opossums, and asked, hey, if there's one that, is coming in that's maybe the runt of the litter or not doing well, to where you don't know that it's going to be releasable, are you able to let me know? And then, if the Cincinnati Zoo is able to be a home for it, we would love for that to be the case. So they did get an opossum in. Unfortunately, Mama was hit while she was crossing the road, and Opal was the only baby that survived in her pouch. So she was taken in, and instead of trying to assimilate her with other opossums that they had, because they weren't totally the right age, they gave me a call and said, hey, we actually have this one little Opo, and she needs a home if you still want her. I said, absolutely. So my previous staff there's amazing. They socialized her, so they hand raised her. She was itty bitty when about 2 months old when she came in. So they hand raised her and socialized with her every day until we were ready to take her once she was off of formula. And I drove up home and did a little visit and brought her back with me. But Opal is fantastic. She was raised by people her whole life, so this is what she knows, and she's great at doing what she does, which is just being chill with us. So very different from what you would find of a wild opossum. But she's fantastic. Her personality is just super goofy and hungry, and or I should say hangry. You could never curve that girl enough to eat, but she's really fantastic. She's also super smart. I mean, it's not an attribute always attributed to opossums, but she knows how to target, she knows how to circle, she knows how to stand up, she knows how to go into her her carrier and take herself home and leave her home. So she really does really great things. And if you guys are ever here at the zoo and you want to see her, one of the best spots to try seeing her is the animal flexibility zone. So it's by the children's zoo area, a little play structure out there, and she gets to go out there a couple times a week. So we don't have it scheduled or anything, but if you're here at the right time, you might get to spot her out there.
Yeah, that's a really fun area in the zoo because I've seen plenty of different animals, snakes, opals out there, all kinds of different animals getting exercise and getting some time outside. It's really fun to see. Some of my favorite content with Opal when she was when you guys were going through the hand wringing process was seeing her in her little pouch. You guys had we can talk about the genesis and why the pouch was kind of the right idea natural history wise for her.
So the pouch just made sense that they are little marsupials, but she likes to be kind of tucked in small spaces. She's great at going in her carrier, but we found that when she's in the pouch, she's able to, if she wants to peek her head out and look around, she can. If she wants to climb up out and onto our shoulder, she can. She's able to do what she wants to do a little bit more. So the pouch has worked out really well from when she was a baby till now, and she's, getting up there in age already, unfortunately. She loves it, and I think it just gives her a little bit more control on what she can do. She can hide if she wants, or she can pop out and say hi to the world.
It's always precious seeing her in the little sling.
Yes, it is. You mentioned that she's 2 and they don't live long. How long do they typically live?
So in the wild, it would be, lucky if I think it's for them actually 60% success rate of if they're going to survive really adolescence. But if they do, maybe a year to a year and a half or so.
Wow.
I'm sure there's some that are a little bit older.
When do they start reproducing then?
That's a good question. I don't know the exact age, but young.
Yeah,
okay. Young. And that's actually part of why their lifespans aren't so long, or hypothesized anyway, why their lifespans aren't so long is because reproduction on them is so taxing on their bodies.
Oh my gosh, you see some of those mamas carrying 13 babies
God.
all over them.
It's a lot, and they have those babies for 4 months.
Wow.
So it's a lot for them to reproduce. That's part of why they think that they just don't really live that long, because even under human care, it's 2 to 4 years.
Wow.
I did have one at my previous facility that lived longer than that, but she was an ancient girl.
Yeah.
So it's not typical.
Okay.
So Opal is still spry and doing amazing, climbing around. She's so dexterous, and still has so much energy. So I know she'll be here for a while longer, but yeah, lifespan wise, they're short-lived.
You mentioned she's always hungry, looking for snacks. What are some of her favorite foods?
Can I say anything? Literally anything. She loves her rodents, though. I think a mouse or a chick are probably one of her favorite things. She loves kibble and fruit, eggs. Loves her eggs. Superworms are probably a favorite too. So yeah, she's not picky. She really loves when we have a persimmons tree that's next to the education building. She loves when that's dropping fruit. So that's definitely a favorite for her.
Oh, that's
and
awesome.
fun that she gets to eat a native food item.
So we've talked a little bit about, opossums, and we want to learn more. it's unfortunate that a lot of people don't think they're as cute as we do, and we want to convince them otherwise.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So I think Mark has some myths that we would like to go over with you.
For sure. So some of our favorite parts about these not so spooky animals that we like to say is there's these myths and these stigmas that they face, unfortunately, for a wide portion of the public, and we want to debunk these myths, or maybe prove them right in some cases. You're the expert. You're going to tell us if these myths if there's any substance behind it, or if they're just crazy myths.
Cool, let's go.
But for possums, there's a decent amount of them that we found as we're kind of scouring online. One of the biggest ones is, maybe it's just because you mentioned they like to show their teeth. I don't know, but one of the biggest myths is they're super aggressive and they'll attack you if you approach them. What would you have to say about that one?
That is a myth, for sure.
Myth.
Now, that doesn't mean you will never get bit by an opossum if you stick your hand in his face. But their first line of defense is to freeze or run away. They don't want anything to do with anybody. They're not set up to win many fights, so they're going to try to run away. If they get cornered, they're going to open their mouths, but usually before they ever bite, they're going to play dead. And they don't do that like they're in their mind saying, oh, I'm going to lay down and not move. It's all involuntary. They literally just like pass out. Their teeth from fear. Their teeth, their lips kind of curl back and you see all their teeth. They're drooling. They have a really gross smelling liquid that comes out of their butt too. And they're just kind of frozen, and that can last from anywhere from a couple minutes up to like 4 hours.
Wow.
So it's a gamble for them. They're going to have to hope that animal is going to look at them and say, oh, it's diseased, not healthy to eat. Or the animal's going to take the chance and go for it anyway. So it's a gamble, for sure. Also part of that short-lived life. Doesn't always work out for them. But yeah, they are going to go away from conflict instead of going toward it or trying to run up and bite anybody. That is definitely not their MO.
What would be some of their predators? Like coyotes?
Yeah, coyotes, red foxes, owls, eagles, if you're in a spot where you have a bunch of eagles. Cars.
Yes,
Human causes are the main one. But yeah, they do. Any of your bigger mammals or birds are predators to them.
I was honestly really surprised to see that a lot of people think they're aggressive, because I thought the first thing that everyone knew about possums is they like to play dead, right? Like I was like, who thinks that they're aggressive? I don't know, but it's pretty common out there. A lot of people think it. Glad we could debunk that one. Next one we have is people think that every one of them carries rabies, that they're a huge rabies vector. They're spreading these diseases all over. Can you confirm or deny that one?
That is a myth. So opossums have super low body temperatures, and it's actually really hard for them to get rabies. Again, doesn't mean it hasn't ever happened. It has, but their body temperature is so low that rabies has a hard time surviving in it. So they're not going to be a carrier of it. They might pass away themselves if they get it, but they're immune to quite a few things, including venoms. So they are usually, you're never going to see a rabid opossum. It just doesn't live in them.
That is so crazy, and what an adaptation. Do you know, is there a reason other than it's helpful, but like for their low body temp, or what that's about?
I think it just has to do with like metabolic and like how they eat their food. Like, don't know an exact answer on that, but I think it goes back to like their diet and how they eat, how they like digest their food. It's pretty insane though.
Interesting.
Yeah, that would make sense, and it kind of checks out too, because like I think a lot of smaller animals, they tend to be really fast and quick and scurry around, but not necessarily with opossums. They're kind of like go at their own pace. They're a little bit more go with the flow. They play dead, so it checks out. It makes sense. Another one is people might see them getting into trash cans. They assume the only thing they eat is trash makes up their entire diet. They're just garbage eaters. Can we say it's a myth, or is it a fact?
That is a myth, because they will eat anything. So if you have trash open and available, it's a buffet for any animal out there. They're going to eat it. But they'll eat whatever they can find. So, and they do live around a lot of humans. They're an animal that's adapted really well to living in suburban areas. But they also live in very rural areas, and places that humans aren't also. So, weirdly, everything I feel like comes back to their short little lifespan, but that actually is part of, maybe it's not 100% a myth, because that is part of their short lifespan, is that they don't always eat the right kinds of foods, and they have really not a delicate gastrointestinal system at all, but like a delicate need for calcium. So they need a lot more calcium than other animals.
Interesting.
And if they're eating stuff out of your trash, or like you're feeding cats outside or something and you put cat food out and you have an opossum that comes and gorges every single night on that cat food, he might not live as long as one who's not eating those things because his nutritional needs maybe aren't being met.
They're getting full on things that fill them and make them happy, maybe, or they like the taste of, but they're not getting the needs that they have.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah. So opossums can get MBD, metabolic bone disorder, pretty easily, but they just have a really delicate like calcium need. So if it's not met, that also can shorten their lifespan.
Hey, I can relate to that because I could eat ice cream every meal and just fill up on that all day, every day. But unfortunately, it's not too good for me.
They don't.
So we got 2 more myths. These last 2, I think are very interesting, and I'd never heard either of these myths. But there's threads online where people think these are true. The one is that people are scared of them because they sleep upside down, like vampires or something, like hanging from the tree. Yeah, hanging from their tails. Have you ever seen that before with all the possums you've encountered?
I have not. No vampire opossums yet. Yeah, myth. So they do have prehensile tails. They can work like an extra hand. And when they're babies, they can hang by their tails. They don't do it a lot. Right, exactly. Yeah, their body weight's so little that. But as they get older and they get bigger, their tails aren't meant to support that much weight. They can't hold on like that. So if it's in a pinch and they're falling or something, they might for a second hang. But for the most part, they're not relying on that tail for hanging at all. Mm. It's just for helping in certain situations.
They're not sleeping during the day, just hanging upside down.
You'll never see an opossum like that, no.
Are they strictly nocturnal? I don't think we mentioned that.
Yeah. They are, however, nocturnal to animals doesn't really mean like what it means to us as humans. So it doesn't mean that they're, sleeping all night long, you're never going to see them, or awake all night long and you're never going to see them during the day. They'll definitely come out during the daytime if it's, maybe rainy and their den got flooded out or something, or they just didn't eat as much as they wanted to the night before, or it's a really, really cold, snap in the wintertime. It's a lot warmer to go out in the day than it is at night. Mm-hmm. So, and especially when mom has babies and she's needing to find more food, you're going to definitely see them, and skunks, raccoons, all kinds of animals, foxes, like that, who you think are nocturnal, but you're going to see them during the daytime, or especially like dusk, dawn time. So they'll be out whenever, but they are more classified as nocturnal, definitely, yeah.
That makes sense, for sure. So glad we could stamp that one as a myth. The last one we've got here is that people think that possums give birth through their nose. This one was kind of wild to me, but people refer to them as quote-unquote nostril breeders. Yeah. What do we have to say about this one?
I can't wait to hear your explanation for this one. Good luck.
Myth. So, how this one came about is interesting. I can't believe I'm about to say this. So, males have a 2-pronged penis, so it kind of looks like a fork. And people thought that it would fit in the female opossum's nose. And then she would reach down and impregnate herself by what was in her nose. And the babies would crawl up into her pouch. And that's how people thought it worked. What is really happening is people were seeing a mama opossum about to give birth, so the mating process has already happened, and it really only happened 2 weeks before. They have a 14-day gestation, so very, very short. So what they were actually seeing was the opossum reaching down and making a path with her tongue, so she's licking her fur to make a path up to her pouch, so that the babies can crawl up into that pouch. And the babies are the size of like a honeybee. They're teeny, teeny, tiny. They only have front hands. They're like so underdeveloped. It's insane. They barely even have front hands, but they climb up mama's trail that she left and go into the pouch. So what people were actually seeing were the babies literally like being born and coming out of her and going into the pouch, instead of her giving birth through her nose.
So wild to me that one, they would like somehow discover that a male has a 2-pronged penis. And
it's crazy.
then,
if you haven't seen it too, you should Google a picture.
How are people seeing it though before Google was around?
Yeah, really?
To like, oh, that'll go in her nose. That makes sense. And
yeah.
I have so many questions about how people got to that idea, but I guess this goes for all marsupials. What is the benefit of giving birth to underdeveloped babies and having them crawl up to a pouch and then finish developing there. What do you know the reason, the adaptation, any
I don't. I'm sure there's a really good reason. And it's like one I should know. I don't though.
I mean, like the more you do, like I've heard, we all know this
Yeah.
about marsupials, but like I don't think I've ever thought about what is the benefit to
they
that?
They cook in her pouch for like 2 months or so, and they're attached to her nipples the whole time. So, and that's a myth too, that people think that the nipples like are literally like attached to them, like fused together.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's not. It's kind of like that, but there's no like actual fusion or anything. But the babies find a nipple if they're lucky enough to find a nipple. There's usually like 20 or so that are born, but she only has 13 nipples, so they're not all making it.
13?
Yeah.
Not an even number?
13 and in a circle.
Interesting.
Yes.
No way.
And not all of them work. So you might be the unlucky baby who latches onto a nipple that's not producing any milk. But yeah, they latch on, then the nipple like engorges into their mouth, and their mouths actually are like almost closed. There's just like a tiny little hole in the front. It's just enough for that nipple to go into, and then it engorges in their mouth because of the milk coming out. So it's not like they're stuck on there and it's fused, but the nipple's big in its mouth, so it stays there. And then, yeah, they're in there until it gets a little too crowded, which is usually about 2 months. And then they pop out furred and eyes open, ears open, almost ready to go. I mean, they can walk on their own, but they do use mom to tote them around. So, you know, like a kangaroo, it's hanging out with mom for a while after it's born. Same thing, they might hang out with mom for about 2 months or so until they're ready to finally go off on their own. They seem like super moms
when you get to watch those videos of, like, I was going to say, would you agree with that?
They are. They handle a lot.
Yes. Oh my gosh, 13. Are there any other odd numbered
I never knew that.
mammals? I did not know that.
That's incredible.
Yes.
I know. I'm glad we could debunk the myths though, because honestly, like
these are wild ones.
These were wild ones, and like honestly, if I thought that opossums gave birth via their nostrils too, I might have been freaked out by them. So hopefully now that these are debunked, there's some people out there thinking to themselves, you know what, the opossums aren't so bad. Like I can get used to them. But yeah, some wild myths out here for sure.
Oh my gosh. So I feel like a lot of people, you know, think these terrible things about them, and I hope that this changes their minds. Do you know of any other things we haven't covered that make people, like, have you heard them when you're talking to guests in the park? Or like, what is it? Is it their looks? Like, for me, it's so hard to believe that people are afraid of something because of how it looks, especially when my brain finds it adorable.
Yeah,
have you looked at an opossum's nose? Are you kidding me?
It's just so boopable.
I think it really is.
But have you heard anything else that isn't maybe a myth but something that like...
I mean, the biggest one I hear is just that they look like rats. So people assume that they're rats instead of the cool marsupial that they are, and they kind of categorize them differently in their minds, so they get freaked out about them. A big story that people gave too was always had to do with their cats and how an opossum killed my cat, and I hate opossums because of that. I'm like,
do you think an opossum could kill or would kill a cat?
It could. It would be very unlikely that would happen. So, but that was just something that I think people like work up in their minds because maybe they're the people who feed their cats outside or something, and they always saw it with them, and I don't know where it comes about, but that was always a big one that people would say was they're cat killers, and I'm like, I don't know about that.
Yeah, I've never even heard that one before. I don't think that seems likely at all to me.
Yeah, it's more that they just share the food pretty nicely also with the cats and everything else. But yeah, so people definitely, it's a looks thing, I think, for the most part, where people are just like, ugh, that's disgusting. I'm like, wait, no. Look at this cute one though.
I think they've got such cute faces, and I love their color. They're kind of like silvery coat. I think it's so pretty. Like, I just don't understand it.
They are bright pink noses and whiskers. Yeah,
so cute. And are there any other like possum facts? Opossum. Oh, we should touch on that. Go ahead.
So a lot of people call them possums, but we don't actually have any possums in North America. Lots and lots of species of them in Australia, but not here. Opossums are all the way from South to Central America, and then Virginia opossums are in North America, and possums are in Australia. So there's like 300 or something different, maybe even 400, I don't know, different species of opossums, possums, but Virginia opossum is the only one that we have in our area. So yeah, they're completely different species.
I've heard that name before, but I didn't realize. Okay, so North America, only Virginia opossums.
Yep.
Central and South America,
You got
opossums.
all kinds of opossums.
And then in Australia, there are just possums.
Yeah. Yeah.
Are there any like distinguishing differences between opossums and possums?
They look a little different. I don't know much about possums, but they look different than if you were to Google a picture of like Opal. Totally different look. I think they're more arboreal than our opossums are too. Don't fully quote me on that, but yeah, difference between them. There was back in prehistoric ages. Opossums are so old, so it's like 65 million years ago.
Wow.
So which is something a lot of people don't think about too, and they're living fossils. I mean, they were around when the dinosaurs were in the Cretaceous period, if I am thinking of that right. And they've also stayed like largely unchanged, so that's pretty cool too. But yeah, over time, as continents shifted and stuff like that, that's where we got like that separation of them in different areas.
And then there's more than one species of opossum, but there's only one species in North America.
Only one.
That's kind of wild. I wonder why the others haven't moved up.
They actually were never in the western part of our area.
Okay.
They were always in the east. So as their range expanded, they were more in the east, and they were actually introduced into our western states sometime in the 1800s or so.
Okay. Do you know why?
I don't actually. Okay. I've looked that up, and people think that maybe someone just like brought one over, or maybe someone was thinking pest control or something like that, and then they're pretty prolific breeders, so they just ended up being there. So now they're just normal, and we call them native and everything, but technically they weren't always there. It always reminds me of like red foxes. Everyone thinks of a red fox as a native species, but they're actually from Europe. So they're just assimilated so well, and have become a part of our space so well and positively that they're considered native species now.
Yeah, that's incredible. I'm glad you distinguished that, because I've got such a bad habit of just calling them possums. My family, my entire life, just called them possums, so I would just keep calling them possums. I probably said it on the podcast like 10 times by now. But I'm glad you could distinguish that, because we should be correct here, and we should be referring to them with the correct name, opossums.
So I was asking before I said possum, if there were any other like facts or cool things you want people to know about them.
Yeah. Let's see. They can run at about 4 miles an hour when they really get going.
So you could outrun them as a human.
Probably. They have pretty bad eyesight, so they do go more off of their sense of smell than their eyesight. Let's see, what else did we talk about already? I think the dinosaur fact is like one of my favorite facts.
Crazy.
Though,
I
is
never
that they're
realized
like
that. Yeah.
pretty much a prehistoric.
That's awesome.
Animal.
I do have a question about Opal. Have you noticed when you take Opal out to school groups or to visitors here at the zoo, do you think she's able to kind of change people's minds after they meet her, or are people still like, I don't know about opossums, they're kind of nasty?
I've seen her change people's minds.
Good,
so it's
that's
amazing. Awesome. Yeah, everybody's like, oh my god, that's the cutest thing I've ever seen. And then the kids always, they have to say something before the parents do and embarrass their parents of, oh yeah, my dad doesn't like those, or my mom, whatever. And then, we just talk about her and how amazing she is. And I see the parents, nodding along with the kids fall in love, and, the parents learn something. It's usually the tick fact that really gets them.
Yes.
And they learn that they're really not doing anything but just going through, and they're not going to hurt you at all. They're not going to hurt your pets. They're not going to hurt your kids. They're just there, and just let them be there, and they'll take care of the stuff that you don't want to see. So, yeah, I have definitely kids. It's always like, oh my
That's
god,
awesome.
I meet Opal.
That is, yeah.
And parents, you just, over time of talking to them, there's usually one little fact that sticks out, and they're like, okay, that's cool.
She's doing her job and doing it well as an ambassador animal, and all animals at zoos are ambassadors, but she's one that you can definitely see making a difference. Do you plan then, hopefully not anytime soon, but do you plan to acquire another opossum in the future?
Yes, we do. It'd be really nice actually if we could have 2 at one time, because we do have Opal out and about so much, and for camps especially. So we're hoping that maybe next year we'll have another one. We'll see.
They're not social though. You wouldn't.
Right.
Is that
yeah.
correct?
If you were to raise them from babies and they lived together, there's a chance they would be okay together. There's definitely opossums that live in undercare, those kinds of settings. together, but yes, they are social, so we would keep them separate from
They're
each other.
not social.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
They're
Okay.
not social.
Yeah.
Solitary animals. So we would keep them separate, especially because Opal would be so much older than the little one.
Okay. Well, yay for more possums in the future.
I know.
Hopefully.
Hopefully we can have
happen.
Opal and another
Yes.
opossum
Yes.
here together. Well, not sharing space together, but at the same time,
Yes.
simultaneously. Yeah, that'd be super exciting. Well, Sammy, I do have trivia for you, opossum-related trivia, if you're up for it.
Yeah, we'll see.
Today we got true and false questions.
Okay.
So you've got a 50-50 shot
All
for
right.
each question. These are
Right.
true and false, are usually Jenna's favorites.
Have a good chance.
So a couple of these we've touched on throughout our discussion, but so you'll probably be hinted off on a couple, but maybe not all of them. So first question we have, which I did not know before doing research and then now talking to you as well, Sammy. True or false, opossums have more teeth than any other mammal in North America?
Very true.
Yes,
Very
I learned
true.
that from Sammy.
Very true. And how many teeth do they have?
50 teeth.
50.
Yep.
Which is incredible to me. Like they have such small mouths. How can they even fit 50 teeth?
Right? Their mouths do go back quite far, but yeah, they're jammed in there.
That one's fascinating to me. Next up, we're 1 for 1. Next up, we have opossums are one of 3 marsupials in North America. True or false?
I would say false.
False.
False. False. How many do we have again?
Just
Our
one,
one
right?
and only.
Just one. Our one and only Opal. Just one. It makes them pretty unique, and it's another reason that we should kind of cherish them as native species, right? They're such a cool species that we have around here. We're really lucky to have them. Hopefully, we're changing people's minds about them through this podcast. Love to hear it. This one, we're 2 for 2. Next up, true or false? Opossums are resistant to many species of snake venom.
That is true.
That is true.
Very cool.
That is
Yes.
I don't even know how that happens or how evolutionarily how many years it takes to build up a
Right?
resistance
Yes.
to snake venom, but it says they're resistant to rattlesnakes, to copperheads, to water moccasins, all of those we have, in the
Bee
eastern
stings,
US.
hornet
Yeah.
stings. Yeah, it's a protein in their blood that
Okay.
binds to the venom, or proteins in the venom, or however it is, and it neutralizes it. So yeah, they're actually studying opossums on a cheaper alternative for antivenoms.
Wow.
No way.
Look, they're even helping humankind.
I know. They're helping us in all kinds of ways. They're eating our ticks. They're taking care of all
Right?
kinds of
They
stuff
need
for
to be
us.
more appreciated.
Seriously. All right. 4th question here, which I can't remember if we touched on this one or not. I think we may have, but true or false? Opossums have an opposable thumb.
Very true.
Very true.
Yes, another cool adaptation I learned.
I know.
I mean, I guess I knew that, but I never thought about.
Bonus points? Do you know what their opposable thumb is called? I did not know this one.
Hallux.
A hallux. Yeah, yeah. That's a
She
term
knows it
for
all.
it. I know. Sammy's killing it. We're 4 for 4. Heading to the last one. So we mentioned our opossum here, a precious little girl. Her name's Opal. So Opal is the birthstone of August. True or false?
False.
False. Jenna's hopping in quick.
I'm going false too then.
False.
It's October.
It is false. It's October. Jenna, why'd you know that one so quickly?
I might have been born in October. I just love October so much. I have my pumpkin earrings in.
Jenna's always festive during this month. You love to see it.
For spooky season.
But it fits perfectly for Opal to be recorded during this not so spooky podcast
does,
series that we're
yes.
doing. It fit perfectly. I had no idea until I looked it up that it was
I love
October
that.
for what it's worth.
I'm glad I picked the October date.
Right? Oh, man. Well, thank you so much for coming and talking to us about Opal and opossums and everything you've done. I had a question that I already forgot other than my what can I do. I'm going to see if it'll come back to me. But in the meantime, we end every episode with the question, what can I do to be a better steward of the earth? So,
Yeah.
what can I do?
So I was thinking about this one, and I just went back to my years in wildlife rehab and all of the different animals that I took in, because almost all of them, 90%, came in because of human-related injuries, reasons, causes. So something as simple as just being really careful about what you toss in the trash can save lives. The amount of gulls that I took in, or deer, or opossums that had our trash tangled around them was huge. So before you throw out your can of whatever, make sure it's actually cleaned out so it doesn't entice anybody to try to get a sniff in there and try to eat it, and crush the can so that an animal can't fit its head in there. Make sure you're recycling your glass and cleaning. If you have a jar of pasta sauce, clean it out, recycle it, or if you want to throw it away, make sure you're like wrapping it up in something, maybe paper towels with tape around it, or some people just I keep a box in my garage, I put my glass in there, and then whenever it gets filled, I close up the box, I tape it up, and I throw it away.
That's a great idea.
Just, an animal is going to either get stuck in it, or they're going through our trash and they're going to step on it and get glass in them, get infected, and possibly pass away from that, or at the very least get some kind of an injury from it. If you're fishing, don't leave your fishing line out. If you are just walking in a park or something and you see somebody's fishing line or trash, pick it up and throw it away. If you're driving in the middle of the night and you're in an area that has cornfields on the side of you, or you're going through the woods, try to take it a little slower so that if something does come out, one, you're safer, or that animal that's crossing the road maybe has a little bit of a chance then to make it across. So there's just little things that we can do in our daily lives that will help individual animals out there. Because thinking big in the conservation world, there's so many big things that people can do, but there's also so many little things that everyone can do to save individual species.
The whole point of the podcast. I was hoping, you can have little things everyone is can handle.
Like your trash bags. Instead of throwing them away, recycle them with programs that do that, or at the very least, make sure you tie them up as tight as you can so they don't, just float away in the wind for a turtle or something to eat, or an animal to get tangled in. If you just tighten it up and throw it away, that's a lot better than just letting it either be outside or go into your trash can where it's going to get opened up in a landfill and then blow away in the wind and get tangled on something.
Yeah, the fishing line's a great one too, and I don't think we're necessarily as cognizant of that here, kind of in the greater Cincinnati area, but I know in areas where there's lakes or they're coastal, fishing line is such a problem for a lot of animals, so I'm glad you touched on that one.
Yeah, because I think gulls are another animal that a lot of people don't really like. Everyone calls them seagulls, but there's no such thing as a seagull. There's just lots of different kinds of gulls. And since we had so many up at the lake, that was an animal we took in a lot of every year. And a lot of them had fishing line either completely wrapped around them to where they couldn't move anymore, or wrapped around one wing, and then the hook is stuck in their beak, and their face is stuck down, and they're just lucky that someone found them. Yeah. There are hundreds of others that are not found. Those ones were just lucky that they were found and brought out to us, and sometimes it's easy enough to take off the line, help them out, and release them. Other times it's, an injury they're not going to come back from. So it's a pretty horrible way to pass. So just little things like that you can do to help out animals that live right around you.
That's a great one. I love your idea of with your glass jars. You box them up, tape the boxes shut. I'm gonna steal that one from you.
There we go. We all learn something every episode. Is there anything else we missed that you want to touch on?
Not that I can think of off the top of my head, except for come by and visit Opal when she's out. We'd love to see you.
I remember what my thought was. I was going to say, I'm so sad Opal didn't join us today.
I was thinking about it, but she's a terror. Oh, really? She would be everywhere, and I would have to police her.
We need a babysitter.
She does need a babysitter.
It kept us more focused. We had the rats join us for the last episode, and it was very distracting.
Yes, super cute, but very distracting.
But Mark and I selfishly love when the animals can join us.
She would be biting that microphone right now.
Well, thanks everyone for listening. We hope you have a fantastic spooky season.
Yes, thanks so much for everyone for tuning into another episode. Sammy, thanks for all your help. Thanks for joining us and everything that you do here at the zoo.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
And a thank you and shout out to Opossums. They're helping us in more ways than people are recognizing.
All Opossums, especially Opal.
Yes.
She's a real
Opal, yeah.
Have a good one.